Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Well, let's give a ballpark idea if we could. Let's say, and I tell you, everybody in Orange County basically has a house that's worth $1 million or more. So let's say there's a house that's, and I don't know if you're going to be able to do this, so forgive me for putting you on the spot. But
you're putting me on the spot.
Am I? Okay. Well, maybe an approximate. Let's say they own it free and clear, $1.5 million, and they're 70 years old.
All right, let's make it $1 million to make it easier.
Okay.
Okay, because it's now you're $1.5 million. You're in the
okay. Yeah.
So let's say it's $1 million. In all the years that I've been doing this, 9 out of 10 or 11 now. The standard answer is at age 62 you're qualified for 50%.
Okay, so that's good.
So in that case, it's 500,000. However, in this current environment, because the market rates are higher, at age 62, it's closer to like 35%.
So 350,000, and that's specifically because interest rates are higher.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And that's because of the 10-year rate. What I'm hoping I watch is all these, with the new administration, the types of things they want to do, that 10-year bond rate, when that goes down and it's stabilized. The other thing that's happened too is I've seen changes in the market where it went at one point for no reason to do directly with the rates. It went from 50 to about 40. And it was because of the changes that the government made to the formula, right? It had nothing to do with rates. It's for whatever reason, they made these changes. But what happened then, Darryl, is as long as the 10-year bond rate is not volatile, volatility kills it, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen. This is like projecting 10 years off. Eventually, things get to where the 10-year rate isn't as volatile. The government will probably tweak those rates back up to be 50% at age 60.
To reiterate, the older you are, the more you get.
And then the other thing, too, is even in this environment where, Jim, 35 is not very much. But I know I can project. It's a matter of time before it goes up to 50, right? So my 350 now is going to be 500 again at some point in the future. What I can do is I can refinance my loan I got that gives me 350 today with one down the road that'll give me 500.
That's a big deal. So
that's a strategy.
Yeah.
Let's say the only thing I'm doing now is paying off my $350,000 loan, right? Jim got $350,000 loan. I got this in this scenario I see day in, day out. I've got this payment. It's $2,000 a month, $1,800 a month, and my Social Security check is $3,500. I see people that half of their income is going towards mortgage payment. So today, let's pay off. Let's give you an $1,800, $2,000 raise, tax-free from a cash flow perspective. And let's look at, and I track it, at some point in the future, we're going to redo this and give you a chunk of money, nice big line of credit that you can use for your retirement goal.
And once that's locked in, so let's say that all happens and you get 500,000. Once that locks in, let's say the bond market crashes or whatever, you're locked in. You get the 500.
That's it. That's a beauty thing of this. Another one is, in the 2006, and I know a lot of people have the same story. I had a line of credit on my house. It's like 50 grand. It's like my safety blanket. I use like 20. I figured, whatever I need, I got the 30,000. Well, when the prices went down, those HELOCs, poof.
HELOC, let's explain what some people may not know what a HELOC is. Home equity line of credit. Yeah, it's funny. That's what came to my mind is oftentimes if you're over 62, rather than a HELOC, you're going to be better off getting typically a reverse mortgage. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, because two reasons. One, HELOC has a payment. Whatever I put on my loan, let's say I have 50,000, I put 20, I got a payment, no payment, and these are immune to market changes. So not only will my reverse mortgage line of credit not go poof, go away, it's going to keep growing. It's going to still grow with the change in the market. So that's a great solution. That's why you can see once people understand how this line of credit works, that's why they usually go in that direction instead of, but then they can do a payment too. Okay.
That's a big deal. Reverse mortgage instead of a HELOC. That's huge. What other benefits can you can use a reverse mortgage to purchase a house?
Yes, Darryl. One of the biggest hidden
benefits
seniors is the fact that you can purchase a home with the same idea as a reverse mortgage.
This is huge because there's so many non-contingent buyers out there. If a senior was trying to buy a house and they had to go and sell a house first, it really puts them behind the eight ball. It's going to be challenging. It's very challenging for someone to get a house when they're contingent on selling a house. So explain how a reverse mortgage could remedy that problem.
Yes, you can use reverse mortgage to buy your home. It's one of the biggest held secrets. When I talk to seniors, people don't realize that you can purchase a home with a reverse mortgage. And I got introduced to this. I used to sell homes. I was a realtor like you. I worked for two builders for 10 years selling homes. And one day this woman came in, she was 70 years old. She came in, loved one of my models. This guy sat down and said, well, my client is going to buy this home with a reverse mortgage. And I said, and I have a finance background, accounting finance. So I used to be able to estimate payments for people, right? Because when you're in a model home and it's a Wednesday afternoon, someone comes in, they like your home. It's like, well, is this person qualified or not? So I could kind of qualify. So I knew about loan payments, debt to income. I knew that kind of stuff. And this guy comes in and he starts explaining, well, no, what they can do is they can buy this home with no payment, and it's not an all cash transaction. And this is where it gets huge for seniors, because if you go by the rule that I don't have a payment, then if I sell my house, then my mentality is I've got to buy a new home all cash in order to avoid a payment. Well, what happens with a reverse mortgage is you can buy a new home with, in the current market, in our example, $350,000. So if I can buy a $1 million home with $650,000 down and not have a payment.
Got it. So you sell your house, sell your house, and then you get that
$650,000, right? Your client nets $650,000. Two examples. Let's go through. Okay, gee, I only made 600. Some people say, I can't sell my house because I can't get a good one. I can't buy a cash house that I like at my price point. Well, your price point, if you make $650,000, is 650 grand. With the reverse purchase, your price point is $1 million, because I can finance that 350 with a reverse purchase, which allows you to buy more home with the proceeds of your sale. And this is why I got into this. When I understood this, when I was selling homes, I realized this is massive for the senior market. And this is something that many realtors don't know. When I explain this to financial planners, they even though they understand reverse mortgages, when they learn this, because what happens, there's so many potential applications of this. And I wrote a book that I'll show. It's called 30 Strategies
show your book.
to Sell More Homes to the Senior Market. This is a book that's designed to train real estate agents. It started off with this concept that I'm sharing with you now of how you can use a purchase reverse, okay, to buy more home with the proceeds of the sale of the house. Now, if you're 80, then it becomes, well, I could buy $1 million home with, $550,000. It's less, right? So the older you get, the lower the down payment. So what does this do? And the main example I just showed you, that you can buy more homes. So let's say it's a situation where you're going to net $650,000. And then I help you determine, and I do it with agents all the time, well, here's what that person could get for $650,000 down. They could buy $1 million home. So you tell your client, and your client goes, well, Darryl, I don't need $1 million home. I just need a same price. Let's say it's $700,000.
So they're moving out of state. I'm joking.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
There's nothing out there for that price.
No,
but go ahead, in California.
I had one. I got 650 grand, and I know that I can go to Nevada or something, but even, Washington, those are like 650 now. It used to be like this. So let's say, Darryl, I'm just going to buy the same. I'm going to take my $650,000. I'm going to spend the same amount on a new home in another state. And in the process, maybe I'm getting rid of a payment, which would be awesome, right? We're going to pay off a mortgage. You go, well, even if you're out there looking for a $650,000 house, you can maybe only put $400,000 down, get that $650,000 house, and now take that $250,000 and put it in the bank, or give it to your financial planner that can take that $250,000 now. And the rule of seven, 7 years from now, it doubles. So when financial planners understand this, they love this concept. Or what you can do, and this is what I say in my book, is you could sell your house. And I even have an example on my website of somebody moving into Temecula. Now it's an older website. You can buy a fourplex, move into one of the units, not have a payment, and now you're renting out the other 3 units with a reverse purchase. Now imagine your client. This is where it gets fun.
I might have to charge people to listen to this podcast, but go ahead.
There you go. Because what happens if I sold my home and I got rid of a $2,000 payment? I made $650. I went into this fourplex. I don't have a payment, and I generated $3,000. Let's say $1,000 per unit. I saved $2,000 here. I generate $3 here. I'm a $5,000 a month turnaround cash flow position. When you start understanding this concept, you can really do some cool things for your clients. And Darryl, 99.99% of real estate agents don't understand how this works. That's why I became passionate about it. I used to do seminars, and I created a website, and then I actually wrote a book. And when agents get this, they can change people's lives, right? And what does that do? It gets somebody that, I don't want to sell my house. I'm on the fence. When they start seeing the potentials of what they can do, that can create the listing that agents want, and that can make the move for people that makes the most sense for them. Because people, sometimes the best answer is to move, but you're kind of stuck.
Right.
It's familiar. I go into the book, why people move, why downsize, why they don't, all those kinds of things. And the book kind of evolved into other strategies as well. I mean, I can say that there's the state of the Yorba Linda, right? I don't know if do you go to that? You probably don't.
I've gone to cities, those
Yeah,
before,
those state of the city, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
I remember I was sitting at the state of the city with a bunch of people I've never met before, and I started explaining. Well, did you know that? Here's a way that it's always a question. Do you know that if you were to net $600,000 on your house, that you could buy a $900,000 house and not have a payment? Have you ever heard of that idea before? I call that to buy more home. It's a strategy, and there's so many people that don't understand, don't even know that, but once they hear it, it's like, wow, are you serious? It's like, I don't believe that. That's a really interesting thing. And for your listeners that want to find out more about it, I've done a bunch of those.
No, we're going to give your contact. That's phenomenal. That really is. That is something that I think most people would not know.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't. And realtors can do such a service for their clients by being able to just explain it. So because I used to do reverse mortgage trainings for agents, right? And I go into the stuff that you and I talked about, which is, that's important. Now what I do is I go into agents and try to get them past the basics quickly, but get them to this point where they understand these concepts and can throw out ideas for their clients. And then if they get traction, call me and I'll put the numbers to it. And then that way you can, and I can do a pre-approval letter, the whole thing, just like any other loan. So that I want to make sure that we talked about that, and that's something I wanted to share because it's exciting. But it's a huge opportunity. A realtor that can do this is so much different. It adds more value to the ones that don't understand this.
Oh, without a doubt.
So it's a huge way to differentiate yourself as a realtor.
And what a benefit to people. My goodness, this is life-changing.
Exactly.
Jim, let me ask you this, because this happens, of course, especially with being that this is a product for the elderly. What happens if someone has a reverse mortgage and then they have to move into assisted living?
So one of the key features of a reverse mortgage is that the loan can only be made on your primary residence. Okay, so, and that's an FHA requirement. And the idea makes sense. These are supposed to serve you, as part of your senior living, not on investment properties. Okay, so what you're asking, Darryl, is what's the definition of a primary residence?
Yeah, well, let's say they have a primary house. They've got a $1.5 million house. It's worth $1.5 million. They get the reverse mortgage. 5 years later, after they get the reverse mortgage, they unfortunately have to go into an assisted living. Do they have to sell the house at that point, pretty much, or
if they're married? Okay, let's say we have a couple. If there's still one of the couple in the home, no change. Okay, so what happens with reverse mortgage is every year they send a letter, which unfortunately looks like junk mail. And once in a while, people call me and they say, "Hey, you need to certify that you're still living in your home. So people check that off. Now, there's two different readings of what is a primary residence. Okay, one is that you have to be in the home 1 month after 12, over 12 months. Because you could have the scenario where, hey, I go on a trip, right? I go on a 6-month vacation. So one is that we have to be in the home 6 months. Okay. The other is that you have to be in the house one evening over 12 months. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. And that keeps you as a primary residence.
So essentially, if that happened to you, you simply would go to fulfill the rule. You'd go spend the night at your house.
You could. This is all theoretical, hypothetical.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But here's what typically happens is if I'm in this house and I don't have a reverse mortgage and now my permanent residence. Now, if I go into a house for six months, it's not my new permanent residence. If there's a chance I'm going to go back in the house, then it's still my permanent residence. But if you think about it, if someone says, okay, I'm permanently going to go into an assisted living place, that's now your primary residence. What do most people do to pay for that? They sell this house, right?
Or they could lease it out. But yeah, you're right.
Lease
They
it out.
typically
Okay.
do sell it. You're right.
Yeah, so you're right. So if they lease it out, then we got an issue because technically the assisted living is their primary residence.
So the short answer is they got to sell the house.
Yeah.
Pretty
If
much.
that's their new primary residence, they're going to eventually have to sell a home unless the rule is they get in a wheelchair and spend a night in their house. And then that's actually an old story from years ago that somebody, had shared with me.
Wow. Well, I tell you,
that
this has been extremely helpful. I mean, you even taught me a few things. Not that I didn't expect that, but this is great. The purchasing and everything. So let me ask you this: if someone wants to get a hold of your book and or you or your website, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. There's two ways that I operate. One is obviously with clients, and the other is to do things like this and network with real estate agents. Because real estate agents have that kind of relationship with clients where this product fits really well, especially not only just to serve their clients with refinance, reverse mortgages, but also to maybe help them improve their lives through, selling their home and buying one with a purchase reverse. So my name is Jim Zuras. It's spelled Zures. My phone number is 714-392-3889. My email address is my name, Jim Zuras, Zures, @gmail. Okay. My book is intended for real estate agents. So if you've got real estate agents watching this, it's really
Hold that book up.
Hold that book up. Are you familiar with Career Compass?
I am not.
You're not. Okay. So any agents out there, if they're involved, a member of Career Compass, I'm actually I'm a subject expert with Career Compass, and I'm the senior market expert. And if you join Career Compass, I've got 11 different podcasts on how to sell the senior market. Because there's other ideas besides just reverse mortgages, like how do you sell? There's like 3 different medical industries where you can partner with these industries in order to help them uncover listings, because a senior placement person sees a listing before anybody else does. And so there's these other strategies involved. That's how I would do it. If you have an existing reverse mortgage, I'd be happy to answer questions. I get them all the time that people didn't do business with me. And they ask like, I got this letter that they're going to foreclose on my house because, well, you didn't return that letter that looked like junk mail. I get that one all the time. Or agents call, hey, I have someone that just passed away. How does this work? How does reverse mortgage work? Those don't relate directly to me doing a loan for you. But if you want to get, my approach is I provide the information you need, and no loan is better than a bad loan. I'm not going to do a bad loan. And I could tell stories where I've refused to do a bad loan. And then it's turned out that I've been able to help clients. So that's kind of my approach. If you're listening to this podcast and you see the value of that, you want to use me as a resource, I invite you to do that again.
Call,
Call Jim,
Zuris.
714-392-3889.
And Jim is spelled G-Y-M, right? I'm just kidding. J-I-M. All right, Jim. Hey, I'm going to exit out of here. I tell you, this has just been fantastic. I'm so glad you joined us because, like I said, this is just a wealth of information. So I appreciate you being on the show. Go have a great rest of your week, and I'm sure we'll talk soon one way or another. So
sounds good. Thanks for having me on your show.
No, thank you.